You probably are wondering why I'm so obsessed by not pushing this to the GitHub before you listen to this video. And the reason is very simple. As you can see, as we're going to be pushing everything up to the GitHub, we're also going to be giving the rest of the world our API key, which maybe in this case, obviously, this is a silly example, who cares? But in general, that is probably not the best practice what you should do. And one of the ways how we can hide that is using something called environment variables. They're not unique to the Create React app, but Create React app has created some nifty methods or options that we can use in order to hide them. And if we would want to hide this key, let's say this actual API key, first we would need to create a new file, and that is going to be in a root. And we're going to call this file .env, and we're going to also say development. So this is going to be used for development because, by the way, we're also going to set this key up in a Netlify. That's going to be the second place because by the time we're going to push it up to the GitHub, there's going to be no key. And that way, Netlify is going to need to know that. So for building, once it's going to be in production, we're going to have to set it up on Netlify separately. But in this case, this is just going to be for development. And once we create this .env development file, now we can create our variables. However, there is a kicker. And the kicker is that these variables are going to be key value pairs, but in the Create React app, they need to start with React underscore app. That is mandatory. That is something you should always do as you're working with Create React app, is where you're starting with React app, and then you can name your variable however you like. I'm going to name mine API key. Let's say API underscore key. And I'm going to set this equal right now to whatever value I had. So let me find, first of all, the key. Let's grab the key, and I'm going to right away cut it out since I'm not going to leave it here. And I'm going to say, okay, so copy and paste it in the development. However, also make sure that since we do have this git ignore file, we would want to add this .env development. Otherwise, you can make the file and everything is going to be working fine, but you're still going to push it up all the information anyway. So make sure that within the git ignore, we're going to add our file of .env development. So now the file is going to be hidden whenever we're going to be pushing up to the GitHub. So far, so good. Then also we can save the env development. That would be the first step. And now the good question probably is, okay, so how do I access this? Well, again, we can do the same thing since we're working with template literals. We know we can access the variables, or in this case, we can access this variable with using the syntax of process.env. And now you need to go with your variable name. In our case, that was React app, API, and underscore key. And if everything is set up correctly, now our application should still work. And at the moment it's loading. So let's see, maybe I did copy and paste it a wrong way. Or you know what? No, that is something that I also wanted to show you, is that we need to restart the server every time we're going to be setting up the key. So every time you're going to be setting up something in the .env development, we do need to restart it. Because at the moment you see that we are just loading the recipe. So obviously there's not the correct way. And if I'm going to go to the console, there should be an error. And there's in fact 3 of them. So within the console, it says, okay, so failed to load resources. Because obviously at the moment we don't have the key. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the terminal. I will gonna stop the dev server. And let's again kick it into the gear. npm start. And now this should work. Whenever we start up the application again, everything is going to be displayed properly because our key should be working. Again, that's something important you need to remember, where whenever you're going to be setting up the key, then you do need to restart it. And of course, everything is working. Again, I have my mashed potatoes. Then I also can look for, let's say, my coffee. Again, we're going to have details. I'm going to have my coffee. Now, this way, I'm not sharing my key anymore with the rest of the world. Don't believe me? You want me to show you how this is going to work? Okay. I'm going to head over, first of all, to a Netlify to set up our global variable. Because at the moment, like I said, this is not going to be working. So I don't want to waste your time by pushing up to the GitHub and then you're going to be getting a build error So why don't we go first to the Netlify? I'm gonna go to netlify.com. Hopefully you are building the website with me, meaning you're doing all the updates. And by the way, you should be able to see how this is gonna work. The moment I'm gonna open up, this is the application that we currently have. Because all the updates that we're doing up to the point before we pushed it up to the GitHub, when we set up the dynamic application, everything should be shown already on a website. And what we are looking for is going to the site settings. Then within the site settings, there's going to be build and deploy. And here we're going to be looking for build environment variables. So that one was used for development locally, but this is going to be whenever we build it. And now I'd like to make that variable. So I'm going to say, okay, so there's going to be a variable of key. So far, so good. Let's copy and paste it. And also I would like to grab the value here. I'm going to say this is going to be my value, and we're going to copy and paste it within the value. Let's save that. This is going to be our variable. And now we can actually go to the GitHub and we can push it up to the GitHub. So there's two things that I'm going to be looking for. First of all, I don't want to see that file, the .env file, in our actual source, because that means that I'm sharing again my key with the rest of the world, which is not something that I'm looking for. And the second one, I want to make sure that within the Netlify, everything is built properly. So the key here is working. All right, so we can do that as always within our local source, where we just have, okay, the content, and then this is going to be source control. Then let's write dynamic single recipe with env variables. Yep, that's going to be our commit. And then we're going to say yes. So everything is going to be committed. And then we can also do the push. In this case, we're going to push it up to the GitHub. And that's going to be the first step. So hopefully everything worked out. Well, I already saw that the file is not being committed. So I already know this should work. We will going to head over to the GitHub. I will refresh. And the moment we're going to refresh it, first of all, we're going to have dynamic single recipe. But if I'm going to be looking in the source, I don't see anymore this env development. So this is only used during the development. And I also can go to, let's say, where it was. Well, it was in the pages. We have the single recipe, and let's see what kind of code we have. And at the moment, you notice that I'm using the React app API key. So you don't see what kind of key I have. And then obviously already on Netlify, everything is set up where the building process has been started. So by the way, this has been published. So everything is working really well. Why don't we also go to a overview? Then we can go to URL, and this is going to be my application. And now let's see whether this is going to be dynamic. And again, let's pick any of them. Let's go with hot potatoes. And yes, I do have the details, and everything is displayed properly. Awesome. This is how we can set up the environment variables that we can use and hide them from the rest of the world. So as they're looking at our GitHub repo, we're not sharing our secrets or any kind of secret information.